You know, this will really mess with your brain in a major way because it really does challenge everything that we've been taught throughout our entire
Everything
schooling.
you've been told is wrong, my friend. Well, not everything.
I'm listening to you and I see.
It.
I see. I want to tackle.
I've always been a contrarian too, by the way. I've always gone, I've always questioned authority. I've always questioned the conventional wisdom. I've always challenged the beliefs, the firmly held beliefs. You know, there's like that philosopher, George Santayana, that said, fanaticism consists of redoubling your effort when you've forgotten your goal. You know, and so this pretty much describes all organized religion, political parties, institutions, social movements. They forget what the initiating goal was as they become more and more fanatical and then go sideways. So it's like the entire American experiment of a democratic republic has to be re-looked at, because how much of a democratic republic do we have and freedom if the most important technologies and information in the history of the United States is being held covertly by an unelected and unappointed group that is not being overseen by the president or the people's representatives in Congress? It makes a complete mockery of democracy and freedom. And so there are a lot of things people need to start challenging. Question of the freedom of the press. If everything I'm telling you is true, and it is, every word of it, and we have an 8 terabyte archive and 755 whistleblowers, not firsthand or not secondhand ones like some that have come out publicly that I've been involved with, but I mean firsthand, people who've dealt with the technology, dealt with this whole system. Why isn't that being covered in the media? It's because the media is not allowed to cover it. And why is that? It's because the big corporate and financial interests don't want this out because it's a vertically and horizontally integrated system. So here you have the whole, what's called the fourth estate, the freedom of the press in question. So I think there's all these issues are very large issues that need to be joined. Luckily, I've been providing information to the senior most people in the Senate and the House for the last year and a half, and they get it. I mean, the senior leaders there get it. That's why all these things are coming forward. And there are folks in the Pentagon who also are now awake to this problem, and they're fed up. You know, one group calls themselves the have-nots because they're very senior folks in the Pentagon who have been denied access to information, even though there are undercover of top secret programs, operations dealing with this. And so this is the term they call themselves the have-nots. And of course, I've dealt with that since, you know, my coming of age on that was the CIA director, but then a couple years later, in 1997, I find this an astonishing story. There was a man who was the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, J2. So this would be the guy who is your main intelligence guy for the whole Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon. And I was asked to do a stand-up briefing for him at the Pentagon. It was April 1997, so it's 26 years ago. And when I went in there, I took astronaut Edgar Mitchell with me, sixth man to walk on the moon. He had not seen anything. He just was, he was learning about all this. And then I brought this Eisenhower witness in and a couple other witnesses, military whistleblowers. And before I went to the meeting, I gave the Admiral a packet, a briefing document. And so he could get a lot of information before we did our what's called a stand-up briefing for the Admiral. And one of the documents is from Nellis, it's so-called Area 51. And it's from 1991. Now remember, this is 97. And it's not been declassified, but I have it. And so I put it in there, and it listed the project code names and numbers for a lot of these operations. So based on that, he made some inquiries. And here's what happened. Now, this is an Admiral, J2, head of intelligence joint staff. He gets hold of one of these compartments that are dealing with this. And he says, oh, I'm Admiral Tom Wilson, blah, blah. Oh, yes, sir, we know who you are. And he says, I want to be read into Project X. And they said, sir, you don't have a need to know. And he said, God damn it, excuse my language, I'm the head of intelligence, Joint Chiefs of Staff. How do I not have a need to know? They said, sir, we will not discuss this with you. Hung up on him. He then subsequently got threatened personally and threatened with being demoted, have a star taken off his lapel. Now, I have proof of this.
Do you have this documented anywhere?
Oh, yeah. Of course we do. We have everything documented. My archive is 8 terabytes.
Okay, let me ask it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have him on record
saying
that this is what happened to me?
The only thing on record about that is that there was a PhD scientist who recorded a conversation with him and made notes of it that got leaked out a couple years ago. And based on that, I had to respond because most of it was accurate. This memo's on the internet. It's that Admiral Wilson briefing that Dr. Greer did. No, this has all been established. But the problem becomes very quickly, what are you going to do when you have a situation where, and then a couple years later, there's something at the Pentagon called the Defense Intelligence Agency. It's basically CIA. It's the military intelligence organization for the Pentagon versus CIA civilian. And the director of it, General Patrick Hughes, back some years ago, also wanted to get information on this. He had been denied access. Now, you have to get your mind around this. This is a 3-star general in charge of the Defense Intelligence Agency being denied access. And I'm going into this meeting, and I go, he says, well, who else is in this situation? I said, well, the president, and the CIA director, and your colleague over there at J2, who had then moved on to ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence. But my point was, I said, this is a huge systemic problem. And this is what other senators now are awakening to right now on the Senate Intelligence and Armed Services Committee and in the House on the Government Oversight Committee and Intelligence Committee, is that there is a massive operation going on that's rogue, unsupervised, and that has involved, quite frankly, trillions of dollars in funding that have not been accounted for. Trillions, not billions.
Understood. I wish that we had either the admiral or the general on tape somewhere.
Oh, that didn't happen. These guys, after they got burned and stood down and threatened, they don't want any part of this. They don't want any part of it. But we have documentation for it. I have all my archive and the correspondence and everything I'm telling you I can prove. I don't need to prove but by the way, I don't need to prove anything. No offense to you or anyone else. I mean, my record stands for itself. But this is all factual. I only tell these stories to illustrate and put flesh on the bone of the nature of the secrecy and the problem we're facing. And it's a huge problem. It isn't something that can be waved off and wished away. It's going to take some very courageous people in and out of government to fix this in time.
It is going to take very courageous people to step forward. Yeah. That's exactly why I'm asking you the questions I'm asking you, because it seems like everyone is afraid of being demoted, a star taken off my lapel. Yeah. I'm going to be killed. At some point, you would like to see someone who is high up in the government say, hey, look, I didn't believe, I didn't know, but this is what I was exposed to.
Actually, to correct you, that's actually now happening. If you look at some of the senators and members of the House, well, Congressman Tim Burchett, who I've met with from Tennessee on the House Oversight Committee, he is publicly talking about this. Senator Marco Rubio and Mark Warner, the co-chair, Senate Intelligence, are openly talking about this. Senator Gillibrand, your senator from New York, openly talking about this and passing laws to get to the bottom of it. The UAP UFO issue. So that's happening. It's happening.
Well, we know that
unfortunately more slowly than it should, but it's happening.
Yes, the government is now acknowledging that we need to look into this thing. We need full disclosure. You're absolutely right.
They know more than they're talking to.